Today we're going to talk about Hermes scarves and specifically authenticating them. How can you tell the difference between an authentic Hermes scarf and one that's not so authentic? Can you guess by looking at these which is real and which is not? I have 10 tips for you today to help you figure that out when you're looking for Hermes scarves on the pre-loved market. So stay tuned. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury handbags and small goods to the everyday luxuries of life. If that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and be sure to like the videos that you enjoy. And one of the perks of subscribing to my channel is you get to see my community posts on your YouTube homepage, where I post deals, discount codes, sales, and rare finds related to these beautiful things we love. So one of these is an authentic scarf and the other is not. Did you guess correctly? Let me show you each of these where you can see the whole pattern and then you can try to guess. The pattern on these is mountain zebra. So here's one and here is the other, and I'll lift it so you can see it. This one's a little bigger than the other. Could you tell just from looking at those which is real and which is not? This one is the real Hermes scarf and this is not. So let's look at some details that will clue you in when you're looking to buy an Hermes scarf pre-loved and whether yours is likely the real deal or likely not. One of the first things you want to look at, one of the most obvious things when you're looking for an Hermes scarf, is the price. Is the price too good to be true? Hermes scarves currently retail, now I'm talking the 90 centimeter ones, which are the most common size. Those currently retail at Hermes for $480. Now there may be special ones with embroidery or sequins or something that are more expensive, but generally your basic scarf retails for $480 right now. So if you go on eBay, which is where I found this one, I got this years ago by the way, and you find a scarf that looks like an Hermes scarf, but it's maybe $50 or $75. You can just about bet that that is not an authentic Hermes scarf. Tip number 2. Does the pattern on the scarf exist? Like I said, this is mountain zebra, so is this. So this pattern does exist. This is a copy of an Hermes scarf, but you may come across a pattern, an image, a design that you really like and you're not sure if Hermes made it. So what you'll want to do is, most listings, when the person who's listing the Hermes scarf knows what it is and knows what they're talking about, most will list the official name of the design. So what you want to do is take that name, go to the internet, search for it, search for Hermes mountain zebra in this case. You may even want to search for the size, 90 centimeter in this case, and see if that pattern exists from Hermes. If you look at the general search results or the images, you'll come across some other ones. You'll likely come across other images of the scarf you're looking for. If you don't, that's a red flag. Also, I mentioned size. Some patterns do come in multiple sizes, so familiarize yourself with the sizes that Hermes offers. Like I said, 90 centimeters the most common, but there are also tiny 20 centimeters, there are twillies, there are nano twillies, there are triangles, there are oblongs, there are 100 centimeter, 70 centimeter square, 140 centimeter. There are many different sizes. So know if your pattern exists and did it come in that size. The third thing to look for is, did this pattern come in the colorway that you're looking at? You can tell by looking at these two, these are different colorways. This authentic one comes in this blue and pink and purple pattern, whereas this one has the whole rainbow. That alone does not mean that this was fake, because Hermes releases their patterns in many colorways. So familiarize yourself with those colorways. There are quite a few websites that show different colorways for particular scarves. I have yet to find one that's an exhaustive list, but there are some pretty good ones and I can link those below for you. And Mountain Zebra was released in a very similar colorway to this. I haven't looked at it closely enough to know if it's exactly the same, but there is one very similar, and I think that's the most popular of the colorways for that particular design. If you can't find that colorway in other images on the internet besides the listing you're looking at, that's a red flag. Tip number 4, look at the hand-rolled edges on the scarf. There should be photos of this if your seller knows what they're doing, because they know that that is one of the things that people look for when authenticating scarves. If they don't have a picture of it, ask for one. I'll scroll down the edge of this so you can see this is the authentic one, this is not. And one thing when I have watched other videos about authenticating Hermes scarves, they say that the authentic one should be very straight and very perfect and not have any flaws, and the stitching should be, I think it's 5 millimeters apart, and they are hand rolled and hand stitched. And that you wouldn't see, I'll back up a little bit here, wrinkles like this or like that. However, as I scroll down my scarf, I see some wrinkling here, and I know that this scarf is authentic. So I want to point out that that does happen, but a general rule is that you're not going to see things like this. Now, that doesn't mean that your scarf is fake necessarily, but it's one thing to look for. Now, there's another telltale sign on these scarves. Here we're looking at the front of the scarf, and this edge is rolled to the front. It's rolled toward the front. So if I bend that over, this is the back. Also, you can see the stitching a little more clearly there. So an Hermes scarf should have that edge rolled toward the front, where this is where you feel the bump, not on the back. On this scarf, however, that hem is rolled toward the back. I think you can tell there's the back of the scarf, and the hem faces the back. So that is a telltale sign, that's a red flag. Another thing to look for in your Hermes scarf is the tag that's attached to it, if there's a tag attached to it. If your scarf does not have a tag, that doesn't mean that it's fake. Somebody could remove the tag. I remove the tags from my scarves. I purchased these little packs of tiny envelopes from Amazon, and when I remove a tag, I put it inside this envelope and I write on the front the brand, the name of the scarf, and the size of the scarf, so that I always know which tag goes with which scarf. In case I ever want to sell, I have the tag I can include with that. Now, since I just got my mountain zebra scarf, I do still have the tag attached, so I'll show it to you and compare that to the tag on the other scarf. The tags at Hermes have changed over the years, and sometimes they change if there's a special design. The colors change, the size changes. So just because your tag doesn't look exactly like another tag that you've seen doesn't mean it's fake, but familiarize yourself with the tags so you know what to look for, and you'll recognize when something is really off. Here's the tag on my authentic Hermes scarf. Now this one happens to be blue with white lettering. You will notice that these tags are attached at the end on a corner of a scarf. In my experience, the stitching that's used to attach the tag is the same color as the rolled hem, and you'll see a few threads that attach. It's not just one. Sometimes they're looser looking like this one is, sometimes they're tighter, and I just get tiny scissors and very carefully cut them off myself. Here's the tag on the not so authentic Hermes scarf. You'll notice it's not in the corner, and this tag is just a piece of fabric that has the information printed on it, whereas with this tag, I don't know if jacquard is the right word, but the letters are part of the tag. It's not printed on, they are sewn into the weave. I also don't know what tags look like in other countries. In mine, a scarf that was sent to America, I have English and French on my tag, whereas this tag has some Asian characters, and I'm not sure if you would ever see that on an authentic Hermes scarf. And I pulled my Animopolis scarf out so I can show you this paper tag. If you're buying an Hermes scarf that says it includes the paper tag, this gives you an idea of what it would look like. So it has a couple of barcodes, it has information about the scarf, the name, the colorway, and some other information. And then on the back it just has the Hermes logo. This tag is paper, but it's also coated in plastic. And on one end, not that one, but this one, it's perforated at the fold, so you can tear it in half and remove it easily. And speaking of things that can be removed from the scarf or can be separate from it, the packaging. If you see a listing for an Hermes scarf and it has the Hermes orange box and the ribbon and all those things with it, keep in mind that those things can be purchased separately, so that does not mean that that scarf originally came in that box. Just something to be aware of. Now let's look at the design of the scarf itself. There are a few things to look for within the design. And this, by the way, is tip number 6. I have not done a good job of keeping track of these. Now what I'm about to show you can be tricky to find on some scarves, especially if they have a very intricate, detailed design. So I'm going to pull a few scarves to show you these examples. One thing you'll look for is the word Hermes with a copyright symbol. You can see it right here on the corner of my The Battery, New York bark scarf, or here on my Nano Zebra Pegasus scarf, and you'll see that they've combined Hermes, the copyright, and Paris. Hermes scarves will generally say Hermes Paris on them. They've done it a little differently here. Normally it looks more like this. Here it is on my Equator wash scarf. Here it is on the Battery New York. Here it is on Annapolis. And here it is on Mountain Zebra. Hermes scarves will also often have the title incorporated into the scarf. Here it is on Mountain Zebra, on Zebra Pegasus, on Annapolis, on the Battery New York, and on Equator. And on many designs, because these are created by artists, not just people who work inside Hermes and design scarves exclusively. Many of these designs, these pieces of art, are created by people who are established artists outside of Hermes, and Hermes hires them. So many of the scarves will have the artist's signature, and these can be some of the trickiest things to find. Here's the signature on Equator. Here's the artist's name on the Battery New York, and on Mountain Zebra. And again, not every scarf will have all four of those things, but those are things to be aware of and to look for. And as you're looking for those things, pay attention to the print quality in the scarf. Here's where I'm going to show you some differences between the authentic scarf and the not authentic one. Hermes scarves are printed meticulously. They are silk screened. In the silk screening process, you print one color at a time. Each of those designs on each screen has to be done exactly and perfectly, and Hermes does them that way. If they're not that way, they won't pass and they will not be sold to you. It's a little more difficult to tell on something like Mountain Zebra because the design has some wash and some gradient to it, and actually the faux Mountain Zebra scarf I have is very well printed, so that's not the best example. But I also have this scarf, and I'm not even sure if this is a copy of an Hermes. It's clearly supposed to be Hermes with the orange and everything, but I don't know if Hermes made this exact design. I know they have a giraffe scarf with 3 giraffes called 3 Graces, and this has 3 giraffes, but it's not the same design. They're not in the same positions here. But this scarf is not printed as well, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. And I'll compare this to Annapolis, which is printed perfectly. Annapolis has so much detail, and it has a lot of fine lines and a lot of different colors. So let's look at this lizard here, and you can see everything is printed perfectly. There's nothing that's off, there's nothing outside the lines. Whereas on this scarf, if we look closely, we can see the colors don't line up there. You see how some of the orange from the background is inside that wing, and that wing should be all yellow and gray up to the black line. And on this giraffe, we see the same thing happening here. So their screens were not lined up perfectly when they printed this one. Hermes would never do that. They would never sell you a scarf that looked like that and had those flaws. Tip number 8, the materials. Now, generally when you think of Hermes scarves, you think of 100% silk, and the tag will say that. However, they do also do other materials and silk blends. They may have a scarf that's all wool, or all cashmere, or a blend of silk and cashmere, or silk and wool, or other materials. So be aware of that. And tip number 9, familiarize yourself if you can with Hermes silk in particular, because it is different from other silks. Particularly if you're buying a newer piece, it's going to have a little bit more stiffness to it. The Hermes scarf versus just about any other scarf that I've held, even if it's another high-end designer scarf. The other scarves feel a little more slippery, they're more drapey. It's a little hard to explain if you don't have it in your hands. The Hermes scarves are just a little more stiff. When you tie it, it's gonna hold its shape a little better. Instead of, like if you have layers of folds, it'll stay in place generally. Whereas one like this, if you layer the folds, it'll collapse. Now, considering that Hermes has different materials, they also have silk wash, which is what this is. This feels a little more like some of the other silks. It's not as stiff because it has been washed. And if you get a vintage scarf or a scarf that's been well used and broken in, it will feel more like this, where it's a little more slippery and hangy, drapey, and not as stiff. You can also look at the weave of the material. I don't know how well this will come up on camera, but on an Hermes scarf, you can see the lines on the weave. You can tell that it's tight. You can see each little thread. There's a texture to it. There's almost a tooth to it. Now compare that to some other silks and you don't see that as much. They're smoother, not as toothy. And I think that's one of the things that gives Hermes that stiffer texture. And tip number 10, the weight of the scarf. I've actually seen people take an Hermes scarf, if they buy it pre-loved, for example, fold it up, put it on a food scale, find that Hermes scarves weigh more than the other scarves. There should be a minimum weight to the scarf, and I forget what it is, but I can put it below in the description box. Sometimes people have even said that if they're considering purchasing a pre-loved scarf, they ask the person who's listing it to weigh the scarf for them and tell them what it weighs, or take a picture of the item on the scale so they can see what it weighs. And that's an indication of whether your scarf might be real or not. Well, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope those 10 tips were helpful. Best wishes on your Hermes scarf search. Hope to see you back here next time. I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.